Good day, everyone. I am your Science 9 teacher, Miss Rahima S. Macno. This discussion will be about the respiratory system. Again, this serve as an additional information or review on this topic as I already give you or shared a link about a video of this system or organ system. So to proceed, we have here the term levels of biological organizations. So to give you an overview of the organ system, so let us first trace or know the levels of biological organization or how living things are organized from the smallest level into the highest level. So as you can see here in the picture or illustration, we started accordingly into a subatomic particle. So when we refer to these particles, it includes or we refer to the protons, the electrons, and the neutrons. So I think you are familiar already with those particles. So kato sila nga particles, if ato ang i-combine together, it can form what we called as an atom. So we know that an atom is the smallest particle that composes a living thing or an organism. Now, if group of atoms they group together or combine together, they are now what we called as molecules. And likewise, molecules grouped together can form specifically macromolecules. Macromolecules includes those of the proteins. We have the nucleotides or the DNA and RNA, and those DNA and RNA can be found inside the cell. So, after the macromolecules, musunod dayon ang cell. So, we know that the cell, in the second video that I have shared in our group page, naa dito ang mga parts of the cell with their functions, right? Now, si cell, gitawag siya og basic unit of life. Kay siya man ang pinakasinugdanan gyud. Kay diri nga part pamanggod, wala pa manggoy life nga mo evolve deha or mo start. So this is really the foundation of life or the beginning of life. So good sa cell. Now, if daghan nga cell, nag-group sila as one, gitawag na nato dayon as tissue. And then if group of tissues nag-uban sila, it can form now what we called as an organ. So we know that we have different organs in our body. As example here, we have the heart. We can have also stomach and as an example, the small and large intestines and others. Now, if those organs in our body group together, for example, ang stomach, iuban nato sa small and large intestines with the esophagus and others, makabuo siya og system. So gitawag na dayon nato siya og organ systems. And again, in the first video, pinaka first nga video nga akong gi-share sa tuang group page that I let you watch it is about the organ systems, right? So we have different organ systems in our body. So katong tanang organ systems if atong iuban to tanan, it now or it can now form what we called as an organism. So, unsa maning mga organisms? So, it includes animals, kita. Examples, we have here a deer, also the plants and other microorganisms. So, kung ato pa nang kuan, i-move pa nato ang organisms nga parehas og species, for example, tanan deer, that is now what we call population. But if deer with other species, different species, that is, ang tawag ana is community. And then if different communities nag-uban, it is now what we called as an ecosystem. So an ecosystem example is we have a forest, right? Because unsa may makita sa forest, you can see different or various types of animals and also plants and microorganisms like bacteria. And then after that, ecosystem can now be go to biomes, or biomes depends on the climate of a place or the location. So for example, in our country, the type of biomes that we have is what we call the tropical rainforest. Kay naman tay tag init og ulan. Sa mga uban nga country, ang ilahang kuan is, for example, wala sila kayo init, or grasslands, or mostly may kuan, they are surrounded by grass. So managitwag sila og grasslands. Ilahang biomes. And then the highest level of this biological organization is the biosphere. As the Earth, ang Earth composes man na siya og upat ka spheres or systems. Ang isa ato nga kuan system, subsystem is the biosphere. So again, if ato ang lantawon, diri nga part, the cell, dira ang pinaka kibali foundation of life, becomes tissues and then organs, and si organs nga daghan nahimong organ systems, and tanan organ systems itipok nimo organism. So diri ra ta mag-stop daan, because we will be discussing about the human organ system, specifically on the respiratory system. Now, let us define again or describe first the human organ system. Accordingly, again, they are groups of organs within the body that can be thought of as working together as a unit to carry out specific tasks or functions within the body. So, from the word itself palang, groups of organs, and they are working together. So in the second video, again, I have posted or shared in our group page. It explains or describe the different human body systems. So, for example, here we have the circulatory system or the cardiovascular system with the lymphatic. We have the respiratory because of the presence of the lungs. We have digestive, skeletal, muscular, nervous system, excretory. We also have the integumentary system for the skin, apatay, reproductive system divided into the male reproductive system, and we have the female reproductive system. But again, in our discussion in this lecture, we will be focusing on these two system, respiratory system and circulatory system, how they work together in, or their functions, how their functions are related in terms of keeping us alive. So proceed ta first sa respiratory system. So in the second PowerPoint lectures that I will be uploading, it will be focusing on this system. So let's start with the respiratory. Accordingly, respiratory system is a series of organs responsible for taking in oxygen, so pasulod si oxygen, and expelling or pagpagawas sa carbon dioxide. Now, to elaborate more the respiratory system, as the question here, what is the function of the respiratory system, or what are the functions of the respiratory system? It can be summarized into five. We have gas exchange for breathing, sound production, olfactory assistance, and protection. So let's start with gas exchange. So in respiratory system, it involves gases. So what are those gases? that uh that is exchange or involved in the respiratory system nato. So here we have the oxygen and we have the carbon dioxide. So makita ninyo ang arrow. So oxygen, when we inhale, ato ang gina pasulod si oxygen moagi dira sa ato ang nostril and then to the pharynx, larynx, and then we have the trachea and into the lungs. And after that, we expel. So as you can see here in the black arrow, that represents carbon dioxide. So that is one of the function of the respiratory system. The exchange of gases, oxygen pasulod, carbon dioxide pagawas in exchange. Next, we have breathing. So one characteristic nato as a living things is that we are able to survive because we breathe i- in oxygen as one of the survival kuan nato in the earth. So in breathing, it involves again the two gases. So as you can see here in the illustration, so this happens when we have inhalation and this is exhalation. So makita nato, so we have oxygen pasulod. So pagpasulod niya, sige daw, you try to inhale. So when you inhale, the diaphragm, these muscles rises and then it will go down because iyang ipasulod. Next, for exhalation, ato ang mukuan pod ang diaphragm para mapagawas, ma-force out niya from the lungs, mapagawas ang carbon dioxide. So, that is also the very important function of the respiratory system in order for us to breathe and survive. Next, we have the sound production. So take note that as the oxygen or the air enters into our nostril or into the nose, it touches or the air passes into the larynx. The larynx is known to us as the voice box or the sound box in our body. So if you're going to talk and you're going to touch inyong neck and na mo yung ma-feel nga murag mag-vibrate diha nga part, so that is because of the larynx. So pag moagi ang air, mo vibrate na siya, and in that way we can produce a sound. We can talk. Like for example what I am doing right now. Now next is we have olfactory assistance. Olfactory assistance because through the nose as part of the respiratory system, we are able to have our sense of smell. We can smell objects or the substances. As here in the illustration, this is our nasal cavity or our nostril, the nose. And as you can see here, there is what we called an olfactory bulb or part, olfactory tract, and there are nerves or olfactory nerves, which when we inhale, pagpasulod diha og oxygen or air gikan sa gawas, so atong ma-detect na sa mga nerves, ilahang i-transmit dito sa atong utok para maka-respond, para we can identify the smell nga nisulod sa ato ang ilong or sa tuang lawas. Next, we have protection. So the respiratory system also gives us protections against mga inhalation of mga dust and then other particles. So our nose nato na ay presence of hairs, cilia, and mucous blanket. That is why sometimes or we can observe that there are mga wastes or naihugaw nga makuan sa ato ang ilong because those are the dust or mga hugaw nga na-trap sa ato ang ilong by the nose hair or ang hair pod i-warm niya ang hangin nga mosulod sa ato ang ilong And then the cilia, 'di ba, move na siya as part of the cell. And then mucous blanket, so mo na nga magkasipunta because iyahang as part of protecting us because of those mga dust or kuan nga na inhale nato. So those are again the major functions of the respiratory system. So again, the respiratory system where gas exchange happens, oxygen pasulod, carbon dioxide ipagawas, and also it helps us or it enables us to breathe or to survive because of taking in oxygen and expelling the carbon dioxide. And then it also let enables us to produce sound as the air passes through the larynx, and then gives us also the sense of smell, and then we have protections. Now, another questions are or question is that what are the different parts of the respiratory system and their functions? Can you identify what are those parts based on the video that I have shared in our group page? Yeah, basically you can identify. Now, I have divided or I divided the parts into three major parts. Start, we have the airway. So from the term itself, airway, agianan sa air or the passageway of the air, pasulod. So this includes the nose because or nasal cavity, dira man gyud moagi ang hangin or the oxygen, mouth as it is part. And then we have the pharynx, na ang larynx or katong voice box, makaproduce og sound. Then we have the trachea, this tube connecting to the nostril. So take note in our body, aside from trachea, there is also another tube here, the esophagus, which is connected to our stomach. So katong esophagus, agianan to siya sa pagkaon. So mo na nga connected siya into the stomach, while ang trachea connected siya into the lungs. And then we have the bronchi. Okay, this is the trachea, nag-branch out si trachea into bronchi. And then after that, into smaller pagyod, and that is what we called the bronchioles. Next, we have the lungs. So the lungs is the major organ of the respiratory system as again it acts as the functional units of the system by passing oxygen into the body and carbon dioxide out of the body. So as you can see here, we have the left and the right lung, and we're in again. This is the trachea, the tube, and then we have the bronchi, and then divided into the bronchioles. So in here, gipakita lang niya ang mga parts sa bronchial terminal, and then sa bronchus is isa lang, pagdaghan bronchi. So at the end of the bronchus na ay alveoli. Alveoli is a grape-like, mura siya grapes, nga dira mahitabo gyud ang exchange sa oxygen og ni carbon dioxide. Lastly, we have the muscles of respiration. So we mentioned a while ago that one of the function of the respiratory system is for breathing. And in order for us to inhale and exhale, we do have these muscles responsible for it. So those muscles are the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles that works together to act as a pump para ma-push ang air into and out of the lungs during the breathing process. So I think that's it for this discussion. Again, this is just a summary or an additional information of the lectures on the respiratory system so that it would also serve as a guide for you in answering your module. So if there are further questions and clarifications, again, just message into the group chat. And please keep always be updated with our group page, Google Classroom, and the group chat for you to know the or be updated of posting of materials like this, and then for assessment and other matters concerning our subject. So thank you once again. I hope that you have gained something about the respiratory system. So if there are questions, clarifications again, please do so by messaging it into our group chat. Once again, good day, everyone.